Welcome back, Exes and podcast fans. Hey guys, I'm really excited to be back with you guys today. I'm recording this on the day after Election Day. If you're anybody who is in my audience and you're like me, you're very sad. Well, just know here is a safe space for you. We are not here to bring anybody down. We're not here to be hateful people. As far as I'm concerned, we're here to have a good fucking time. And the trauma we talk about is not in relation to political trauma. We want to keep it MLM trauma. Okay. But no, I just want everybody to know that you guys are safe here. And I can't exaggerate that enough. I think that I want everybody to know that this is a place of acceptance. So if you're listening and I haven't wanted to talk to you, there's a good fucking reason for that. Anyway, that was my first disclaimer. We got the second one, which is we're going to be talking about Amway. Woo! No, not woo. We fuck Amway. But I'm not here to defame anybody either. Okay. I'm not here to get sued. If I or my guests speak, we are speaking based on personal experiences, and those experiences have garnered these opinions. Now, are these opinions favorable to these organizations? Absolutely not. Nope. But that being said, we're allowed to share our stories, and I think it's really important that we do so. So again, I'm not here to defame anybody. I might say a couple of different lines of affiliation as well. If I do, again, sorry, I don't like you. But if you're 18 years old or older and you want to join these organizations, you're going to do what you're going to do. I would just recommend listening to other people's stories and maybe making a more educated decision that way. Anyways, now that we got those out of the way, I'm so excited. Everybody loved part one. We have back with us the very wonderful anti-MLM kid. If you guys are not familiar, she is the one who was here with us before, who was raised in Amway. So thank you so much for being back with us today.
It is my complete and total pleasure. I love speaking with you, and you've created such a beautiful space to have these conversations thoughtfully, and have the space to reflect on what we've been through and be able to validate one another. And it's incredibly healing. And I just appreciate you. So if anybody's wanting to share their story, just know that Danny makes it a really, really wonderful place to do so.
Thank you so much. I think that I love podcasts that make me feel comfortable listening to them. And that's something I always wanted to, but I also want to be able to be myself and not feel like I have to fit some specific narrative. So that's why we welcome all narratives unless you're an asshole. So, and by asshole, I mean those very right-wing conspiracy theorists, racist, homophobic, transphobic, fucking stupid people. If that's you, fuck off. But otherwise, I really do. I want people to feel comfortable here because we are talking about some traumatic shit. I mean, it's not, I laugh because I don't know what else to do. I've cried so much that I feel like laughter is all we have. Did you ever get to a point where you could actually laugh about it? And how long do you think that took you?
Yeah, I definitely have a little bit of a macabre sense of humor. And I laugh as like my first stop in the processing of things sometimes. So I've been cackling today, trust me. Yeah, no, I definitely have a duality of this, like, kind of this absurdity of what this whole thing is and how long it's been around. And like, if that's a plot line of a comedy, like, yes, it's pretty damn funny. And also, though, it's heartbreaking and terrifying. But if we can try to keep it, woosah. Yeah.
We do our best over here.
We're going to just do our best.
Well, and I think this is a conversation that a lot of people have had, was that, like, when I say far right-wing extremists, you guys, it's very relevant to MLMs. It's very relevant to Amway. If you're not familiar, the current elected president that begins in 2025 is very pro Amway specifically. And that's not something I personally want to see in the world. But we can only hope that the FTC will also have their own strengths as well. Because Amway really has been around for too fucking long. And we're now looking at 18-year-olds who were born. Well, okay, so 20 years ago was 2004. An 18-year-old had been to 2006.
Mhm.
Kids that were born in 2006 are now going to be eligible to join Amway. Kids that weren't even around for 9/11
That's terrifying to
now
me.
old
Yeah.
enough to get into Amway. And I feel like there's just so much trauma that they're going to continue to inflict. And actually, but through the previous episode, if you guys haven't listened to the first part, please go listen. But we kind of talked about, what it was like for you as you were young growing up in Amway and how traumatic that was for you. If you could give us a quick reminder, how long were your parents involved?
So they joined 77, 78-ish, and they're still in today. So just shy of 50 years. And they're still
Wow.
with no intention of stopping, still shooting to go diamond. And yeah, they're in their mid 70s now. Yeah.
Wow. 2 to 5 years
Nope.
turned into 50 years, and they're
Yeah.
still not these large gemstone diamonds.
Correct. Exactly. And yeah, that's this 2 to 5 year thing is ridiculous. You can't, I mean, even on the Amway income disclosure statement, the average to even go platinum, I believe, as of 2023 was 4 to 14 years, which I don't understand how an average can be a 10-year span, but okay. It just breaks my brain. It makes it hurt. They've just been still there and still striving. And yeah, I mean, like I mentioned last time, they look back on their choices and how they built the business and see things as, well, we could have done this, we could have done that. So it's our fault that it's not different, which is absolutely not the case. There's no other way that it could have gone. We know that statistically. We know that with the data, that it is the exact logical conclusion of being in a multi-level marketing company, is that you will never get to those huge gemstone levels. Not, and then all the stories that we hear coming out of the way that people get up there is not, it's not the way that it's told, right? Like people have talked about witnessing or having it done, or PV lines shifting and PV being credited to other people. And I don't have any experience with any of that, but it doesn't surprise me either that it would have to be done in order to get people into a diamond ship, in order to propel this idea that diamond would ever be possible, to continue the indoctrination, to continue this cult mentality that they're putting new people and crossing people across stages, so that all these new people, these 18-year-olds that are coming in, sitting up in the nosebleeds, they see diamonds being broken. So that means that it must be possible. But these kids are not understanding what is really potentially happening to make what their vision is exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all fabricated. And the more that I
Mhm.
learn that is devastating. But imagine like still thinking that it's possible.
Yeah.
Like that's so sad.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is.
How is that for you? I don't remember if you said this previously, but we've talked about this before recording. So if we're repeating it, I apologize. But how do you feel about your parents finding out in their age now about what's really going on?
It's simultaneously brings me a lot of hope if they were to get to a place where they understood, and also terrifies me because, I mean, the existential crisis that would put someone in, I don't wish that on anyone. Um, and knowing that decades and decades and decades of your life were sucked into this, there's no good answer. There's no good outcome. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I just try to not think about it very much. Back to that whole avoidant thing.
It's easier. I mean,
Right.
that's your whole life. Like
Yeah.
they've been alive in Amway longer than they were not.
Exactly.
And I can imagine that at some point ignorance is just bliss, and that's just kind of the only way it can be for anybody to have
Yeah.
peace anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of, I mean, I know that there's everybody's going to have their opinion about stuff when it comes to communicating to people about your understanding of them being in a cult, right? There's people that fall on the side where I am, which is preserve the relationship. Because if you go up to somebody and you say you're in a cult and I can prove it and this is what I see, the indoctrination is so powerful that it really just pushes them farther in. right? We've seen that over and over and over, where relationships will fall apart before people will leave. And then if the person that is indoctrinated ever does leave and they have split off that relationship, keep in mind that they're leaving with shame. How are you going to then go to that person that you cut out of your life and be like, JK, you were right. Can we be friends again? And try to rebuild those bonds? That is almost insurmountable. And so, that's why I fall on the side of preserve the relationship. I know other people fall on the side of say what you can, when you can, how you can. And I don't know that there's any right answer. I think everybody has to make their own decisions based on the relationship that they have with the people involved. But yeah, right now we're in a place of preserve the relationship. I hope that in some sort of universal balance, if there is one, that by speaking out and speaking my truth and connecting with others that are in the same movement and do understand that hopefully there's some neutrality to the amount of energy being pushed in either direction. And for whatever that's worth, it's kind of that's what brings me peace, is if I can't fix it, I can at least help warn other people. So that they can stay clear.
Absolutely. Which is so honorable, because imagine these 18-year-olds, right? They join the business. That could be them in 50 years if nothing happens with the FTC and Amway. I mean, it could have another 50 years.
Yeah.
And that's 50 years and their children going through this. That is, again, why I think your perspective is so unique as well. You're showing the product of Amway, like the actual product of what it was like to be in Amway, because you went through it. Like, you weren't the business builder so much as you were dealing with what it was like to be around and soak all of that in, which is so much more horrific than I even thought. I didn't know what to believe. All I knew is that, when I saw my own child at the time when I was in Amway, at first I was like, oh yeah, he could do this. Of course you're kind of brainwashed. Oh, my kids are going to love this. My kids are going to do this. And then you start to see that there's really not a whole lot of families together in Amway. And if they are, it's, in my opinion, personal opinion, I think it's manufactured that way. So that way people can see the family members sticking together to try to, again, build that belief. But outside of that, when it comes to, at least from the line of affiliation I was in, was worldwide. And the only children that we saw that were not legacy diamonds, who actually, quote, built it themselves, which of course there's probably some fabrication in that as well, are the guy who talks really fast, is what I call him. They are downline from their parents, and that's it. That was the only, quote, diamond couple that we saw their kids build it. And when you were kind of going through, did you see a lot of kids that were attempting to build it and follow their parents' lead?
No, that's the thing that I remember. I challenged someone on a video of mine. This was maybe last year, I don't remember when, and said, "Tell me, why do you never see a second generation build the business?" And it's a mirage that there's second generations, because just because your mom then recruits you, that does not mean you're second generation. Second generation meaning you were born after your parents started, or maybe shortly around, or you grew up. That's what I mean by second generation. There's no one that I remember ever seeing except for the Diamond Kids, ever. And, they went through the freaking ranks in no time. And, I have my suspicions, but those were the only second generation kids that I ever saw, were people that immediately they started their businesses out of college or out of high school, and within a handful of years were speaking on stages as, in diamond qualification or whatever. And, just really good at spouting the line of the motivation and the toxic positivity and all the things that everybody else just talks about. But yeah, when you're looking around, and, there were people that did come up with my folks that started fairly, around the same time or shortly thereafter, none of their kids were in it. I don't even know that anybody ever, that I can think of, ever even tried. It's when you see behind the curtain, that's what I just keep coming back to, is I was taught why the manipulation, why these specific words are said, why you buy the really nice car, but you buy a used one so that it makes people interested, and they say, what kind of car is that? And when you're recruiting somebody, you don't say, when are you available? You say, are you available on Tuesday or Wednesday? Because you don't want them to have a no, you want them to have a choice. Like all of these, there's a logic and a psychology behind all of that. And it is completely intentional in order to get a subscribed result out of these people, in order to recruit more people. But then, the guise is, well, we're doing it because we want to help these people. We want to recruit more people into this incredible business opportunity.
If you could look around and see around you, and you don't see the children of these people who are quote so big and bad, says something, I feel like, because I didn't see any either. I saw, in fact, I have heard from some children outside of yourself who have just been like, hey, this is not my path. And I was like, oh shit, like that's crazy. But also like even like higher pin levels, not quite the diamond level, but like emeralds, like none of their kids are building it. And these people have been around for years. And I love how you were talking about how calculated it is, the way that they communicate. And one thing that I always wonder how I was able to look past this, but it's that, oh, like if this person is not yet a platinum or above, right? And eventually you do start to learn that, and you ask, oh, how long have you been around? If the person says 5 to 10 years, holy shit, like how could somebody even be like, oh, this sounds like a good idea? Throughout your time, just kind of having seen things from the outside, and even through that time, has it kind of changed that they try not to say those things anymore?
I don't know, to be honest. My memory is that there's so many ways to try to create these false bonds. Like part of the love bombing is creating this false bond and this false, like, because they're not just love bombing you. The intent also is to feign vulnerability so that the potential recruit also falls in love with the recruiter or the mentor or whatever. My memory was a lot of kind of skirting past the length of time, and much more, this individual is an incredible leader within the organization and they've helped all these people. And, and if they are still working, if someone does still have a career, which, side note, they do, because who's retiring if they have an Amway business? But let's say like Joe Bob or whoever, is a lawyer, and he's saying, well, and I'm still practicing law because I have the freedom to do so because of my Amway business. I've gotten to do the thing that I'm so passionate about. So it's like, you're still twisting it in this way that makes it sound glittery. So you're choosing to work. It's not because you have to in order to sustain your Amway business. And that was kind of the line that I heard the most. Now, I would imagine it's not very different, just because none of it is very different anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. I mean, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's too much looking back. I'm looking at all the individuals that I saw in the business, and I've learned recently that some of the people that I saw quote retire have since gone back to work. And I'm just wondering, I wish I could have been like a fly on the wall to see what that conversation was like to their downline. And from what I understand, one of our frequent guests here, Nandi, she is amazing. She talked about how the excuses that they gave that she knew of were, the one person was having a hard time contacting. So going back to work was just to get around people. And then, so that was an emerald. Quote emerald, right? And then this was a platinum below him who went back to work, who said, oh, I'm doing this because I can get my downline jobs. I mean, whether these things are accurate or not, it's just the way that they're putting this on. Because I remember being at this emerald guy's quote retirement party, but then also little juicy detail. So that emerald and his downline, who is also an emerald, these are both this emerald that I'm talking about, the second one, he's the Syrian guy. He is downline from the club owner. If you guys know, you know. I hate this guy. They have a business together. I found this out by just researching their names, seeing what I could find, and I found their business. I was like, what are you? I thought we weren't supposed to be double-minded here. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're gonna fail. So it's like, one, do their downline know that they have this outside business? Or how could they possibly spin that to be a good thing? And all, now you have all these diamonds who are trying to be influencers. The fucking club owner's wife is on Instagram showing off her really expensive luxury meal kits that Lord knows her downline can't afford. Not only that, she's showing off Amazon affiliation links and showing brand X. How are they spinning this shit to be believable? I don't get it.
That must be like just Emmy worthy. Like that must be some really good stuff. I would love to know. Right? Because it whatever it is always in service of Amway, no matter what. Like that, I'm gonna go back to work so that I can have more recruits. What? What? You're taking a job, you're
You're just over broke.
you're lessening yourself to go have an occupation. Like the audacity. Oh my
It's
gosh.
rough. Yeah, and that's where I see when we're talking about how things are the same. Did you ever see people who quit their jobs but then had to go back to work?
I never went to any retirement party. I never even saw nobody that I was even in contact with ever even retired. Quote unquote retired. Nobody ever quote unquote
Wow.
retired their wife. Nobody that I knew that I had like around my sphere even went. I think the highest that anyone got while I was growing up was platinum. Everybody else was like so far upline that I didn't even know them personally. I'd never met them
Yeah.
except for maybe like in passing. Um, because there were just so many people in and out all the time. And yeah, it nothing. It was just the consistency of the nothingness all the time. And there were some women that
Wow.
would some women walked away from their careers, but it wasn't celebrated in the way that it kind of is said that it would. Like it's not a big thing, which makes me wonder if it's like, okay, let's go ahead and step back and maybe we can use it in some speeches, but if you need to go back to work, we can. Like let's maybe not make a big deal out of it so that we don't have to retrace our steps.
Oh,
That's a huge
got
assumption
it.
on my part, but maybe. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it makes sense. That's
Yeah.
wild. So we're talking about somebody, you guys, who has seen this business probably longer than a lot of us have, unless you're some of the folks who have been around longer, which shout out, you guys will see the episodes coming out. But things aren't changing, you guys, and that's the
Mm-mm.
thing. And so we're kind of talking about things that you've seen. And when we left off with the previous episode, like I said, we're talking about your childhood. And so now that you're coming into your own after college, you tried the business, there were some slurs thrown. You guys decided this is not for us. And
Yeah.
then you kind of started to do your research and deconstruct. What did life look like at that period of time when you were really starting to kind of peel back the layers of this disgusting onion?
Uh, really low. I've always struggled with like some melancholy, I would say. Like, but the depression got real. The anxiety got real. The sense of it's almost like if you can imagine, like those Instapot things, right? And then when you release the thing and all the steam, that's kind of what it was like. It was just all this steam of a lot of I don't want to say hatred, but definitely some sense of incredible worthlessness. And it was very existential. Yeah. I mean, when I realized that my husband questioning Amway, when that shift happened in my brain, well, I realized, okay, the reason this is why I'm beating my head against a wall is because I'm trying to defend the way that I lived my life up until now. And when I started to realize that, I think that's when things really started to explode, because then it was almost like I let the steam go a little bit of like, okay,
Yeah.
well, if my husband's not trying to hurt me, maybe I do. He does love me. He does want what's best for me. I need to trust him and examine these things. And I would do a little bit and then I would like take a break, and I would do a little bit and I would take a break. And I think with a lot of people with the pandemic was when I was like, all right, I got the time. I'm just going to sit here and try to figure this shit out. And
Wow.
yeah, that's when I started therapy during that time, and I started having a mirror reflected of all the negative self-talk, all of the self-blame, all of the regret, all of these like things that had been bottled up for so long, all of those negative emotions that we were talking about that are still there. The body still needs to process all of them. Your mind still makes, your brain is still working, and all of these negative emotions, they don't just stop existing because you ignore them. And then all of them kind of started to come up. And it was really dark for a really, probably about a good year until I mean, medication is a beautiful thing. I take my meds every day. I go to therapy every week. And I'm really thankful for that. And I think that it will just be a process of it might be the rest of my life, because I think when there's things that are so deeply ingrained, just like deconstructing anything, all the different systems that we are in, they all need to be deconstructed. And when you just start to realize how much we are all in some ways. There's stuff floating around in our brains that we did not decide to believe. It's just kind of there. And so it's it's hard work, and it's important work to try to get yourself to a place of, okay, the belief sets that I have, are they because I was taught them, or are they because I believe them based on what I have learned about the reality of the situation? Yeah. And that's been tough, is like weeding out what those subconscious kind of thoughts are. And I get called out on it all the time by my therapist. She's like, see, that's that negative self-talk. And I'm like, you can't say that. Don't say that phrase. That's triggering.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh god, the word negative at this
Right.
point is like, oh no, negative. It's true. Yeah. I mean, what a time, honestly, COVID,
Yeah.
to be able to find that, because holy shit, I couldn't imagine going through something like that during COVID, because there's so much time on your hands to think about it.
Yeah.
And I know during that time, I didn't have anything else. It was very much like you got to sit in all of these things. But I can also see how beneficial that could be, where you do have the time to really do deep dives and research, and obviously going to therapy. When you started to do like research online, what were some of the first things that you saw that helped you question things?
I'm kind of somebody that when I see a problem, I need to stare it down in the face. And that is what ended up happening with this. I just put Amway in the search bar of everything. And the thing that helped me the most, beyond even listening to podcasts or reading lawsuits, like anything beyond any of that, was hearing people's actual stories. Validated me so much and helped me, because when you hear somebody started to recruit me at Target and this is what they said to me, and that happened to them yesterday, but it's the exact same script that I was taught to do decades ago, you see it from an outsider's perspective, because I was able to kind of like pull back in a way that, that third party perspective really, really helped me say, okay, no, this is, it's not, there's nothing about this that is redeemable. It's, in my opinion, all bad news bears. That was the best, was hearing people's personal stories. And Sean Munger's podcast episode with Roberta, episode 136,
That's
Life
a
After
good one.
MLM. And then I went to his YouTube channel and I watched the full video that he had done too, which is an even longer, like further deep dive. And that really solidified things for me in a way that it's like, okay, how do you go back from that? Like the blinders have fallen off. You can't put this back in the can anymore. Like once you have seen it, you can't go back. That was the most, yeah. I'm just so thankful that he did that. I mean, Sean, if you're listening, thank you so much.
Seriously, that is also the episode that I think really did it for me. That
Yeah.
was the first episode of Life After MLM that I'd never heard. Was that specific episode. I was like, no fucking way. That's literally what came out verbatim out of my mouth. And I was like,
Mhm.
what the fuck? And I just could not believe what I was hearing. But I'm so grateful, like you said, because somebody out there did it. Somebody
Yeah.
out there said, I'm going to release this information. And I'm so fucking glad he did. And thankfully now we have so many more people who are willing to come out and speak about Amway. During that time, was there a lot about Amway that was out in the world? Because I feel like because around 2020 is as well the same time that I started to kind of look into it. There really wasn't very much other than Zay and Melody, which God bless them, their content's gone now. But
Yeah, there wasn't. There's a website that's just this long, huge collection of people's stories. And that's where my husband actually found that. And he had been consuming that for years and trying to like trickle out information to me. That one had a lot of information, but yet, no, there were some. I think the Dream podcast was really the first one that attacked the topic of Amway. And I think because they also had like a little Facebook group and I was able to see some stuff in there. It was just such a slow burn. But by the time that I was ready to really jump in. It's like, okay, TikTok was there. People were saying their stories about recruitment. It's just the timing really did fall in. But you're right. For so long, it was so limited of what you could find. That was a narrative story. It was much more just words on a page and Reddit threads and that kind of thing.
Wow. And it's such a hard thing to go through to realize. Is it fair to say that you feel like some of your life was just like a lie?
Yeah. 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 I also grew up in extreme, I don't want to say it wasn't evangelicalism per se, but where I fall now, I'm not religious. I'm not in an MLM. I'm not a conservative person. I just feel like so much of it was a lie. And I wonder, I wonder who I would be if I didn't grow up in that environment. I wonder, the fears that maybe I wouldn't have. Because when you're raised in an environment that's like, okay, this is the only way that you will ever be successful. Everything else leads to destruction. You will never have a life that you want if you work a job. All these things, it's just, it is fear mongering. And so you just have all this fear about the world floating in your brain. And so that steals a lot of, progress that a person can make as they kind of enter into their adulthood. Yeah. I regret that. Having a regret, I don't even know if that's the right word to have, but I do hypothesize, I guess, about this like alternate life. But knowing that MLM is so big and knowing that, it's like wound into our economy at this point, I am incredibly grateful, happy, lucky that whatever pathway got me to where I am right now, I'm so like sitting with you right here, telling a story that someone's going to hear that potentially could be a butterfly effect, like all of those things to help more people not have to go through what we went through and to not, have children potentially grow up in that and all the things that leads to. That's an incredible silver lining that I'm very okay to be in,
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, which is always a good positive,
Yeah.
when you're kind of out of it to kind of start to be able to look at that silver lining. And I personally do understand how long and how deep you have to go to be able to find that side of things. When you
Right.
were going through this journey of finding out and going to therapy and questioning, did you ever feel guilty that you didn't build the Amway business?
Yes, I feel guilty still when I play a game on my phone. I feel guilty when I binge a TV show. I feel guilty when and that's just because it's just like a knee jerk reaction. That's one of those belief things that is so deeply ingrained in me and anyone that potentially has experienced the same thing, because wasting time that you could be spending recruiting is the biggest like sin that you could possibly commit against this incredible business opportunity, right? So yes, I feel a lot of guilt. I feel judgment. So yeah, it's all in there. You know what I mean? So it's like it'll still come up, and then I'm just like, okay. My therapist said to just let it pass, just watch the feeling go. And that's what I do. I'm like, okay, you're going to keep on playing this stupid game to pass a half hour while you wait for your doctor's appointment or whatever. And you're not going to feel guilty because no, you don't have to start a conversation with the person sitting next to you. They don't want to talk to you either. Like everybody just wants to live their life. And, and
Right.
maybe they do, but they don't want to do it under the guise of like, maybe I'm going to leave with this person's phone number so that I can contact them for my business.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those things, all the wasting time things, all the, I definitely, because I am somebody, I know we talked about this last time too, about like how to win friends and influence people and complimenting people. That is something that I've held on to because I know that people are seeking validation and they do want to connect. And I now being free from knowing that there's no ulterior motive, I think there's something about growing up in the environment that I did grow up in. I do kind of have this like need to be recognized or something. I don't know what it is. So, but I do want to connect with people and I do want to feel like the give and take, and I want to help people have a better day, and I want there to be no strings attached to an interaction with someone, and so I do hold on to those, like, but I see it more of like dropping little, like, here's some glitter on your day. Like, I'm still going to compliment you, but I do at that moment, I'm like, please don't think I'm trying to recruit you. You're going to be okay. Like, I'm going to leave you be. I really, really just want to
Wow.
tell you that, your smile is so beautiful or whatever. Because to me, it's like, okay, it's just another way to help balance the universe in some sort of way, is like to send out a little bit more beauty. Because I don't even know that I mean, this gets a little heady, but like, is it positivity when it's just existing, and like there doesn't need to be like a barometer, it can just be trying to spread good to other human beings with no other strings attached, and being free of that is like, whew, yeah, it makes my my just so much lighter,
Yeah.
yeah,
Such a heavy topic.
it is,
Like,
it is.
it's hard because I can't like when you grow up a certain way and you have this vision for your life, and then to find out when you're actually at that point in time in your life that it was never going to be that way,
Yeah.
it's a very double-edged blade, for sure. And I'm glad that you have been able to go to therapy and been able to kind of deconstruct all of these things, because holy shit, I the part I think that a lot of people have come to me after your episode, and everybody collectively has agreed that the most heartbreaking part was talking about how your parents were not emotionally available for you. And I can't even imagine going through that and then still having to, as an adult. And it's it's so hard. Like I feel so bad.
Oh, I appreciate you. It's funny. It's like there's a couple specific instances that will forever be burned in my mind that like they still make me sad to think about, It's it makes me sad too, because there's nothing that, like, I am a mom, and if my babies need me, I don't understand. It's like the most cruel thing that you can do to a parent is manipulate them in such a way that you turn off the most guttural instinct to comfort your child in a way
Yeah.
that doesn't ask questions, in a way that doesn't just make them, um, it affects the relationship with trust. How it's a really strange thing, because and now too, as I've done even more deconstruction, I really struggle too with even like feeling like I can be my full self around them, because I don't want to shake the foundation that is there, and I don't want the relationship. It does feel like somebody's that it's very much in just a yeah. It's now this is therapy, Danny. I appreciate everyone reaching out and saying that, and because that is my, like, that's my battle cry, is if you are going to do this business, and if quote unquote business, and if you have children or have any intent of having children, please understand that like your brain just becomes a different thing. And I don't understand the psychology behind it, but I'm there. If you can't acknowledge pain, if you can't acknowledge sorrow, if you can't acknowledge all of those things that your child is expressing, something has happened to you
Yeah.
in your mind, and they will do that to you potentially. Don't deny your kids your passion. Don't do that to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's so
Yeah.
emotional, but I get it. And it is sad because you look at your kids, and I think the best thing too is that I what I've learned through this kind of through even through this conversation is that the more that we look at our children as individuals, the further away we get from toxic organizations like Amway.
Yeah.
Because even with Amway, they kind of in a way inadvertently teach adults and parents how to be toxic narcissistic parents. And
Yeah.
that is the hardest thing to see, because I am a child of a narcissistic parent, and that shit fucking sucks. And it's devastating because they see their children as an extension of themselves. They don't see their
Yeah.
children as individuals, as this child is going to be the next future Amway representative because they have to be, because this is what I see as the best thing for them. There is this lack of seeing them and thinking, well, what do they want to be, right? Because we
Yeah.
all hear, oh, it's the dream, but what is the caveat behind that? Oh, but Amway's, like you said, is going to be the fallback. And then we have these emotionally unavailable parents who are just treating their children as an extension of themselves. And these poor kids, okay, I'm going to say something and it's going to make sense. If you know, you know, but if not, I'll explain it. So, you've ever heard the term glazed up? They got the glaze.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I learned this from the Mormon church. Mormons are glazed up. Once you see a Mormon and you see how glazed they are, you can sell them everywhere. Sorry
Yeah.
if you're Mormon. It's a truth though. So again, with Amway, adults, they are very glazed up, which in turn, their children are now these glazed up children. And I can tell a child is an Amway child because if it's a boy, it's their haircut. If it's a girl, it's how they're dressed. And there's just so much that is put onto these children that is a lot of pressure. Did you feel that same pressure? And I might have asked this before, but to be that perfect Amway child.
Yes. Yes. No hesitation. I don't know that I even would have said that I consciously understood that it was pressure to be an Amway child, other than I remember being a kid saying, my friends are my parents' friends. Um, because I felt more comfortable communicating with adults than I did with children. Because that's, I mean, not to say that I had friends, and which I was very lucky to have, and all the, neighborhood kids, whatever. I definitely I did kid things, of course, but there's always this sense of kind of separation of my family is different. There's something that you will never understand about me, and there's something that, so there's like a separation, but the adults always understood the thing,
Yeah.
which the thing was Amway. But yes, a lot of, um, I almost want to say it's like professionalism, but
Yeah.
as a
That's a really
kid,
good way.
it's so weird. Yeah. It's, um, my mom, we also had like some, like good Southern type of like ideals in the home, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, all the things. Which I also just think maybe is just a generational thing. But yeah, it was like, because it was the Amway meets the conservatism, I think, and the religion piece. Again, it's like it's all folded in on itself and it merges in on itself, and it can show up very similarly. Um, but yeah, I mean, meeting people and knowing that I learned how to shake hands at a very young age. I learned how to, make sure it's not a dead fish. It has to be a nice firm handshake. And like, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yes, it just, I can remember going to, my parents' upline had, um, I mean, to say garage qualified is not even an appropriate, it was a warehouse, Danny. And we could go there and shop for products. I remember the smell.
Gosh.
I remember it was kind of like, as a kid, I was like, this is cool, because it was just us in there, just shopping for products. But yes, it was very like, be proper, be polite, be professional, smile, be interactive, and that's something as a mom now that's so hard for me, because I want my children to organically become who they're going to be. And that's something that's
Yeah.
that's another kind of one of those parenting, like, record scratches of like, why aren't my kids being so hyper attentive to this adult converse? It's like, because they don't give a shit. It's fine. Like, let them do the
Right.
thing. But yes, there's thinking about it now and like talking it out. I don't know that I ever really made that realization, but yeah, it was like being a child, but a professional one, which is so
Yeah.
bizarre. Yeah.
But it makes sense. It really does. And I see the way that and I almost got to be that way with my own child. Now,
Mhm.
thankfully, my child was very young and did not have to endure that. And I couldn't imagine. I mean, my poor child would never, and that's okay. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the fact that, he's not gonna be in Amway. What's great is that he heard my dad one time say, "Don't go around those Amway people." And so now whenever I talk about my podcast or going out and talking to people, just because I like talking to people, it's like, Mom, remember Papa said you can't be around the Amway people? Say, no, it's
I
okay.
love it.
We're
Holding you accountable.
talking bad about them. But it is sad that these children, even in today's era, are experiencing a lot of the same things. And the parents, they don't know what they don't know. And I think there are a lot of parents who I think they're naive on purpose because they don't want to admit that there is a possibility that what they're doing is wrong, which is what
Yeah.
keeps them involved, which is so fucking sad.
Yeah.
And actually, so through adulthood as well, no longer being involved with Amway and being so different and far removed, I mean, to a degree from Amway, how has your life been different now that you have the view that you do about Amway? So you've gone from, I didn't know what I was supposed to think, like, oh my gosh, Amway good. Then, oh my gosh, I don't know about Amway, then Amway bad. And now that you are on the other side of that, how has your life changed?
I mean, so much, right? Like, because as I was kind of learning all of these things and healing from all of this stuff, I was growing a family and, you know, being being a mama. There's so much I think that potentially that sped up some of that process for me, seeing these humans that I did not want to have to experience what I did. But now I am exponentially more compassionate. I am so much more open. I feel like I don't need as much from other people. I don't need the recognition. I don't need to be um and I think because something that draws people into Amway too is this idea of recognition, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially the farther in that they get, they need to be on the stage. They need to be having it because you're told like that means that you're a good leader, that you've done the thing. And so they're willing to make all these, maybe unethical choices about where their PV goes in order to make sure that they stay qualified for whatever because they want to make sure that they get the recognition. That definitely seeped its way into my brain too, where I felt like I needed my life was not going to be an important one if I didn't have enough people know who I was.
Yeah.
Ironically, now I'm on a podcast with, I don't know what any of that means, but maybe I'll work that out in therapy later. But it's like the need for it isn't there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's also like the need was this idea of other people seeing me as important because I did a
Yeah.
thing that is gone. But yeah, it's just it's I think it's very similar to what people say when they leave evangelicalism. And I've heard it so many more. I am a more compassionate person. I am more loving. I am more open. I am more patient. I am more like all of these qualities that I felt like I had. I've actually been able to tap into them in a way that feels much more genuine and then finding them and then growing them. And curiosity is there where it wasn't before, like because oh wait, you mean that I can do my own research on stuff? All right, let's do this. Like I can learn things on
Yeah.
my own.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I I feel free. And so many
Yeah.
people say that when they leave Amway, right? Like this is freedom. This is time freedom. It is maybe, would I say I'm financially free? No, but who the hell is if like in this economy, like, I mean,
Exactly.
it's incredibly right. Like it's incredible. Like what even is that right now? I don't even know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm free from a lot of the expectation, a lot of the anticipation, a lot of the need that I thought that I had that felt like it was put top. It wasn't really
Yeah.
real. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And I love that you talk about being more compassionate.
Mhm.
I feel like and if anybody's listening and you guys haven't been a part of Amway or a different cult, like I feel like it's so hard to understand what does that really mean. Well, you go through a period of time where similar to the way that you're talking about your parents being so emotionally uninvolved, at some point we all become emotionally uninvolved when it comes to these different things. And we have to grow into our own and learn what the hell is compassion, especially if you weren't raised with it. It's a whole new
Yeah.
fucking like concept. And now that you're, like you said, also that you're not seeking the validation, but you are also pretty well known in the anti-MLM community, which is so freaking dope because we need people like you who have this experience to be able to share that. When you're teaching about anti-MLM, does that spill into your family life? Like, do you find a need to teach your children about MLMs and not to be a part of them?
Yes, 1,000%. That's such a huge piece of what I try to tell people is you have to teach your kids. Robert Fitzpatrick, who's the author of Ponzinomics, has a really good podcast. If anybody wants to listen to it, it's called Ponzinomics 101, and it is written to be taught in school to like high school kids. And so it's in kind of that like little chunks with each one has a lesson. And you can take it to your school. You can just give it to your kiddos when you feel that they're age appropriate. I listen to it, and just hearing him break it down in such a simple way. His co-host, I do not remember her name off the top of my head. I believe that she's also an author. I'm probably completely wrong on that front. But it's wonderful. But yes, I did all the thing. I when I teach my kids about it, and when I taught my older ones about it, it's like, okay, I thought to myself, there are some talking points that multi-level marketing has. The first one being, corporate America is a pyramid. So that's the one that we attacked first. And like, this is why this is different than this. A shape does not equal a purpose, right? Like an explosive device and a soccer ball, which is exactly what Robert Fitzpatrick says. It is not the same purpose, but it is the same shape potentially, right? So
Yeah.
those kinds of very basic lessons on the logical fallacies of what multi-level marketing teaches, because it's a lesson in reinforcing critical thinking, but also immediately debunking these talking points that, potentially, I don't know what the statistics are on how many people end up being, a recruitment attempt ends up happening to people. I'm sure it is quite high, because everybody knows somebody, if it hasn't happened to them, that's, a recruitment attempt has happened to them. Because even if it's not my kids, it'll be their friends. That's when I realized that I had crossed the boundary into nutty mom territory when I was trying to teach my older kids' friends. I'm like, listen, don't look at me like that. You're going to hear what I have to say.
Oh, I love that. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Just think though, you could have been the Amway mom. Now you're the
I would much
anti-Amway
rather
mom.
be the nutty anti-Amway mom. I'm okay with that. Yeah. Yeah. It's just
Wow.
so, especially listening to these children that are being recruited, these babies, these
Yeah.
college kids on college campuses that are being recruited, told to drop out of college because they won't
Oh yeah.
need it. Like, come on, you are destroying these children's lives potentially,
Yeah.
or forever altering them in some way if
Yeah.
we don't teach kiddos. Like, I believe, I mean, this is going to sound harsh, but here it comes. If you know about MLM and you're not communicating that to other people, like, please re-examine that. Please consider even just one person. Like, no judgment from me. I promise. You're going to do what you're going to do. Everybody has their own comfortability. In no way. I just encourage anyone that has any understanding of what multi-level marketing is to please communicate that to the people in your lives as best you can, especially these are babies, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important to keep them safe. We teach them about all sorts of other ways to stay safe. And this is like a huge monster that's lurking in the shadows of what we're taught. I mean, we're, in the States, within a capitalistic structure, we're taught hustle culture, gig economy now, like all of these things about like work yourself to the actual bone. Rest is bad. Like we're taught all of these things.
Yeah.
And MLM just is like, cool, hold my beer, watch this. Let me just turn the volume up on that.
Which is
Yeah.
devastating. I think that's a
Mhm.
fantastic point. I do agree with you. I think that it's really important to teach people about it, and I love that you went as far as teaching your kids' friends. Which I mean, hey, listen, I also will go out of my way to tell an individual that I happen to see who I see as a college age, like, hey, be aware that these individuals exist.
Mhm.
So I have maybe warned a couple of therapists that we have come in contact with to be aware of what is going on your college campus. It's bad enough that they have to deal with these like right-wing nut jobs. I guess I was talking to somebody who she didn't know who the guy was. She's like, some guy came to my school and he was signing MAGA hats, and it turned out to be Charlie Kirk. If you're familiar with who he is, I died laughing. I was like,
What?
shut up. Did he really? So not only do we have these people to look out for, but then you have the same thing. Same people have the same beliefs as Charlie Kirk, sadly enough. But those people are going to come up to you and they're not going to be as in your face. They're going to try to manipulate you into being their friend and to make everything look all glamorous and pretty. And they're going
Yeah.
to try to get you into a cult, which is really fucking sad. But I
Yeah.
think that's fantastic. Actually, if anybody out there has children and you have Netflix and you're not super picky about what your kids watch, I know some people out there don't let their kids watch certain things, but this is it's Green Eggs and Ham is the show. There is an episode, I don't remember which one, but it's about brainwashing. It's about one like we'll just call them colonies of people because these are Sam I Am characters, okay? You have these two groups of people who are very misinformed about each other. And it's because they have been taught only one thing. And so they talk about the term brainwashing. And my son was watching, I was like, let's use this as a life lesson.
Amazing.
So if you guys have Netflix and you let your kids watch Green Eggs and Ham, Green Eggs and Ham, Sam I Am. Such a good show.
Amazing.
It's so cute.
That's fantastic.
I can't promise that there's gonna be a VeggieTales episode about this, but Sam I Am or Green Eggs and Ham or something. It's cute, but I love that so much that I mean, as dark and heavy as the topic is, you are such a bubbly person, which I always really appreciate because I feel like we can go through some really traumatic shit, but this is a way to show people that you can come out higher on the other end. And one last thing before we wrap up here that we were kind of talking about before that I really wanted to touch on was if you're out there and you're in an organization like this, we always say you don't know these people. And we talked about this idea of parasocial relationships. If you guys are not familiar, what is a parasocial relationship? I'll give you an example. So parasocial relationship is thinking that you know somebody because you see them, right? So like, let's talk about like YouTubers, for example, or somebody on the TV. Just because you see a version of them does not mean you know them, but that is the relationship that they're trying to cultivate because it helps them bring in an audience. So what's the guy who everybody here has kids who's listening, or if you don't, you know, the Mr. Beast guy. He creates this like parasocial relationship with the audience that he's talking to. And it's that, okay? With this in mind, this whole idea of parasocial relationships, I feel like this is exactly what is going on with these Amway upline platinums and above and what they're showing people.
Yeah, I completely agree. I immediately, when you start talking about this, the first thing that comes to mind is when everything was going down with Brett Worldwide, when his affair was found out, someone in my parents' upline, I remember, this is going to seem so silly, but they said, so this is like an upline diamond or something, or what, up somewhere up there. And I heard this kind of secondhand from my folks that they should have known that maybe he didn't have the best of intentions because when they were backstage with him, he was cursing. Now, okay, being like the person that I am growing up in the environment that I did, cursing was like, absolutely, you don't like, damn. What you said, hell, like what, like these like very softball curse words were not even allowed. But it's that idea of like, what we didn't even know that he curses, like obviously it's freaking Bill Britt, like the mastermind, one of the masterminds of this whole diabolical friggin' thing. I'm sure he can say some words, but yes, it's exactly. You are not only in an environment where you don't really know people that you might have contact with all the time, but especially the leadership, because like we mentioned last time, the higher that they go, the higher the pin level, these people are seen as better human beings. But really, it's because they're just exalted. And that's even more evidence of this cult mindset, because you see them as God figures and these infallible beings that you feel so, because they are telling you, I can't wait to travel the beaches with you. I can't wait until we can, like, they're connecting with you on such an emotional, personal level in order to keep you locked in. And you feel like you know everything about them. You think that they're being completely transparent. You think that they're being
Yeah.
vulnerable, and you attach yourself to who they present themselves to be. Yes, I completely agree with that analysis that it's parasocial relationships. Yeah.
That's so sad. So I went ahead and looked it up. It's the one-sided non-reciprocal connection between a person and a media figure. So yes, I feel like this totally applies because
Yep.
and the diamonds don't know who the fuck you are. Let's be real.
No.
Even if you've met a diamond like a couple of times, they're not gonna fucking remember you. Like,
Mm-mm.
no, the amount of times that I met the club owner's wife, I have pictures with this woman. She didn't know who the fuck I was every single time. There's no way. But in my mind, we had a relationship because that is exactly what they do on purpose with the audios, with the messages, whether you're whatever line of affiliation you're in, they have messages that are being passed down through whatever apps you have. Like they do this on purpose. And I feel like this is something that is so important for people to understand that if you are involved in this type of an organization, I hate to break it to you, but man, you don't know these people.
Mm-mm.
They have such a dark history, and we haven't even scratched the surface of this. And I feel like there's so much more that we're going to find out over time that is
Yeah.
going to be some of the darkest shit. And that's what scares me. I am terrified that I am going to have somebody reach out to me and be like, hey, and it's going to be a fucking bombshell. Not that everything I haven't heard already isn't terrible, but I don't know. Something tells me that there's just so much deeper and darker that happens that we still don't know about. Do you feel the same way?
I do. I also I'm very afraid of the financial wow. Words are hard today apparently. Financial connection to the strings that are being pulled within our government.
Yeah.
Knowing that, if a founder of Amway can be a chairman of the Heritage Foundation, which is where Project 2025 was like, are you kidding me? And all of this money that is funneled into these think tanks. And yeah, I think that there's things that are incredibly dark. I mean, Betsy DeVos's brother was the head of Blackwater. Like, I mean, it's just these things that
Yeah.
are, yeah, I agree. I think both like on a macro and micro level, there are things that are happening that are so very dark, and just the money that is being pulled out of so many people that are just completely unaware, and they really do go into this with the very best of intentions, and we as human beings are exploited in this system, and then the people are just using our dollars to pull strings that ultimately affect us in ways that we might not really want to have happen. Here we are the day after the election, and I'm sitting here thinking like, yeah, I don't
What's
even know.
next?
It's
Like,
like, yeah,
it's scary.
it is scary. And it's like, it's hard for me to even put into words, but it's like, it's such a bigger machine than I think at least that I cannot understand right now. There's so much happening with the self-help industry, with these speakers, with the people that help, that are like, you're in an MLM. Do you want to know how to build it better? Come to me. And they're like these, by proxy MLM coaches. And it's like, there's business systems on business systems that are holding up this thing that is the biggest scam. It's, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I can say that you can at least rest assured that you are not one of those people who says that you are pro the selected president, but anti Amway. You have a
Correct.
brain. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. If you know, you know. Things got some man. This whole like I love the anti MLM community, but dear God, be careful with who you talk to. I
Yeah.
have to be like 100. I cannot reinforce this enough. Be fucking careful about who you
Yes.
talk to. Please do your research. If you are somebody who has a set of values that you really want to stand on and you don't want to go down this icky pathway, do your research. Do your research on me. I say the same thing. Like, go listen to my stuff. If you don't like the word fuck, you're not going to want to be associated with me, I promise. But that being said, I just feel like this whole community is so important, and you have become such a pivotal role in this anti MLM movement that I'm so grateful that you have been able to come and speak with me and be so vulnerable and talk about some dark shit. Like, I'm so grateful for your time. What are some last things that you have for our listeners?
The biggest thing is just speak to the truth that I want to echo what you just said too, that if you have left an MLM take the time to heal, because there's the next MLM, the next cult, the next, ideology is right around the corner, and they are waiting for people who are vulnerable. And when you leave an MLM, you are hella vulnerable, and you are seeking community, and you are seeking answers. And, it's really, really important to take apart what happened to you so that you can avoid having it happen again. Because if you fall into it again, you are perpetuating these things into the world, and I don't believe that people do that with ill intent. The majority of people do not do it with ill intent. I think if there's anyone that is still in Amway right now that might be listening, something that I always say is to step away from your tools for 48 hours, call in sick basically for a couple of days, and see what kind of shakes loose in your brain. Stop listening to your communicate. Stop listening to your tapes. Stop reading the books. Exist in the world and see how you feel. And I just hope that just stay safe, stay vigilant, keep sharing your stories if you are comfortable doing so. As you heal, give yourself grace, give yourself time. It is not something that you can shake off in a day. We're whole ass human beings. We are complex and beautiful, and we are worth the time to not only become educated about what this is, but also to heal from the harm that it has caused, and to just take care of one another.
Wow. Thank you. Again, we have the Anti-MLM Kid. Where can we find you, Miss Anti-MLM Kid?
I am on TikTok as the Anti-MLM Kid. TikTok messaging isn't always the friendliest to videos and pictures. So if anyone ever wants to share anything like that with me, you can send them to me on my Instagram page, which is the same username. I don't post there at all, but if you have any questions, or, I like to answer questions with a video because there's so much nuance. It's just a lot more than, a character limit will allow. I can't promise that I can help with everything, but I'll at least be a place that you can find validation. And and just, Danny, thank you so much. This has been a beautiful experience. I'm so proud of being able to do this with you, and I just appreciate the space that you're creating, and the strength that you show up with, and the passion that you have for spreading this word and keeping people safe in that way as well. And I just applaud you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm like gonna cry.
Maybe me too.
I'm so grateful. I'm so excited about the community that we continue to build on. And I am so grateful because it's stories like yours that help show people that we can have happiness outside. Like, sure, you're gonna go through some shit when you're leaving, but dear God, the grass is so much greener on this side.
Yes.
And if you guys want to be like the Anti-MLM Kid, please share your story with me. And you want to come on, and it doesn't even have to be MLM stuff. You guys, I talk a lot about some really dark stuff. I talk about a lot of different types of trauma. If you want to come on and talk about something, please DM me on Instagram at exesandt.podcast, or you guys can email me at my email, DANI@exesandtpodcast.com. You guys can catch me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere podcasts are heard. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.